Welcome to the latest video of modernmanagement.works. My name is Chris Ernst. I'm the author of the blog modernmanagement.works. And today I will show you how to configure AutoPilot Hybrid Join with Workspace ONE from end to end. So you will get a full, detailed documentation how to configure AutoPilot Hybrid Join. But let's get started with the requirements, and you need to fulfill every requirement obviously before we can start with AutoPilot. So first you need to make sure that you have an Active Directory installed. I think this should be clear. And also you need a user account with rights to create devices. The AirWatch Cloud Connector, or ACC, has to be installed, and you need local admin rights on the server. When you want to use AutoPilot, you need Azure Active Directory Premium license for the users. You need Azure Active Directory Connect already installed and configured, so your identities are synchronized to Azure Active Directory. Then you need the Azure Active Directory MDM application configured. This part will be shown in the video later. So if you don't have configured it right now, make sure you follow the video tutorial. Then you need access to MEM, Microsoft Endpoint Manager, or endpoint.microsoft.com to make sure that we can configure the AutoPilot profile and we can assign the profile to our devices. The most obvious one is, of course, you need a Windows 10 device and you need Workspace ONE, because when you want to do AutoPilot Hybrid Join with Workspace ONE, you need one device and, of course, Workspace ONE for it. And as optional step, you need VMware UAG, the Unified Access Gateway, configured, so installed and configured, because this video will show how to configure the whole process with the VMware Tunnel to provide a connection to your local directory. We have a full-packed agenda, so the video is about 28 minutes. So make sure you plan enough time for doing the whole configuration stuff. So first we will start with Active Directory prerequisites. We need optionally to configure the domain join quota for your Active Directory. Make sure that you have enough rights to configure the domain quota. Normally in the normal environments, the domain join quota is already set. But if you set up a new environment, make sure that you configure the domain join quota correctly. Then, of course, we need to configure Workspace ONE. We need to configure the hybrid join configuration. This part is obviously also optional. So even if we say that's AutoPilot hybrid join, it's not necessarily needed that you using hybrid join. So you still can use the normal offline domain join functionality to join the device only to a domain, so to on-prem Active Directory. So there's no need to really join the device to Azure Active Directory or register the device to Azure Active Directory. So if you don't need hybrid join, that's fine. The whole process will still work. When we use hybrid join, then we need also to configure the AD Connect. We need to add the device to Azure Active Directory or to Microsoft Endpoint Manager, create the AutoPilot profile and assign the profile to its group and then to the device. And we need to configure our VMware Tunnel. So the whole tunnel configuration will be shown here. We're using per VPN here. So only the traffic that's really necessary need to be tunneled will be tunneled with VMware Tunnel. A lot of tunnels here. AutoPilot configuration in Workspace ONE. So there is one really important setting that we need to configure, otherwise the whole AutoPilot Hybrid Join process will not work. And last but not least, I will show you some logging and troubleshooting tips and tricks. So let's get started with the Active Directory configuration. So first I create a new OU for my offline domain join devices. This makes it easy to see if the device gets created and joined to the domain. Of course, you can use any other organization unit, and yeah, we need a special offline domain join user, because this user will be used as service user for the AirWatch Cloud Connector. So I'm using here a separate offline domain join user, creating a password. So this user is a normal user. I would not add him to the domain admin group. So you need to delegate the rights to the user. Means we're using delegation, saying custom settings, since we only want to create computer objects, and with this computer objects the user should be get all necessary full control permissions. Since it's only the one OU, and this means that this particular user is now able to join or create computer objects in this organization unit. So in my lab environment, I got the ACC installed on my domain controller. Of course, this is not really best practice, and you need to add this the created user account to the local administrators. On the domain controller, it's a little bit different, so you need to add it in the domain settings, and then you need to change the service of the AirWatch Cloud connector to this specific account. This is needed to create the offline domain join blob file. So we need to pre-register the device in our Active Directory before we can use offline domain join. So make sure that we restart the service. So that the AirWatch Cloud Connector service is now running with the service account. So in most scenarios and most environments, you don't need to add or configure the domain join quota. So normally in an existing environment, the Active Directory administrators already did this, but per default, the users are only able to add 10 devices to the domain. So if we have a service account, the 10 devices is reached quite soon. So change it to 0 and the user is able to join unlimited devices to the domain. After we've finished our Active Directory configuration, we now obviously need to configure Workspace ONE. So first of all, we checking if the directory services is configured correctly. So we need to make sure that our Active Directory is connected to our Workspace ONE. And also we need to configure the Active Directory, the Azure Active Directory part. And yeah, make sure you choose the right immutable ID for the mapping. You need, of course, a cloud connector. And now we can check if we can find our just created organization unit. So in my case, it's ODJ. So make sure you can find ODJ in your environment, since we need this OG now for the offline domain join configuration. So now go to configuration, and since 2101 Workspace ONE, we have a new tab in it named domain join. Click add, type a name of it. So in my case, I'm just using my domain which I want to join. The domain friendly name is configured in the configuration of directory services, and now we need to create a machine name format. So we have a nice hint here. If you want to use a randomized name or numbers, then you need to choose 7 at least. So in my case, it's ODJ random and then 7-digit. So when you assign it, make sure that you type a correct name for it. So I'm choosing my domain, VMware Online, and say ODJ. I'm using the right organization group. And then we need assignment groups for it. So the next step is to create a new smart group for it, for the offline domain join assignment. So we're clicking add, typing ODJ. You see I'm not really creative what my naming is. So we're using a tag to tag devices to the offline domain join configuration. So this means we need to create a device object first and add the tag to the device, so the device is aware that the device needs to domain join. So I already created the tag. If you don't have the ODJ tag, just create it. And now we need to select the ODJ tag. Save. And now we can go back to our domain join assignment. And there we can type in ODJ and save it. So we have done our domain join configuration. So in case you want to use hybrid join, then you need to configure the specific group policy for it. So I will create a new policy for hybrid join. But yeah, we need to make sure that we understand the scenario of hybrid join. So actually hybrid join is still an on-premise domain join device that is only registered in Azure Active Directory. So that's it. That's optional. If you want, then create a GPO, go to Windows Components, Device Registration, and enable the Register Domain Join Computers as Devices in Azure Active Directory. And then after 1 to 10 minutes, the device gets automatically registered in Azure Active Directory. So this is one part. The other part, of course, is the Azure Active Directory Connect configuration. So in this part, we need to enable hybrid join configuration. So open your Azure Active Directory Connect. and then choose the configure device options. You need to have a global administrator account for your Azure Active Directory. Then we choose configure hybrid join. We only want to use Windows 10 devices or later. And of course, we want to let an enterprise admin configure the whole service connection point configuration. If we don't have an enterprise admin account, then we can configure or download and configure the whole service connection point via PowerShell. So after it's done, after we configure the Azure Active Directory, Connect, and the GPO, our hybrid join configuration is done. So that's basically it. But really make sure that you have in mind hybrid join is only an Azure Active Directory joint device, which is registered in Azure Active Directory. Okay, then we start up our virtual machine or your hardware device. So make sure the device is fresh installed. So for me, I'm using virtual machine because it's much easier for recording. Then you have to press Control and F10. Then you can open, or then the command line gets open. Then we type in PowerShell to open the PowerShell. We set the execution policy with set execution policy unrestricted. Then we need to install the get Windows AutoPilot info script. So type in install script get Windows AutoPilot info. I'm using here the force command to skip some of the provider installation requests. So here I'm using the force to install it, and I only get asked once to install NuGet. After the script is installed, we can run the script. So get Windows AutoPilot info.ps1 -online. So the online command will make it possible to not export an CSV file and import it. It will provide you an online mask like we see here. So we need to log in with our administrative account to our environment. So type in your password, second factor if needed, and then the whole device hash and serial number gets uploaded to Microsoft Endpoint Manager. So this needs some time, and after this is done, we can open our Microsoft Endpoint Manager console. Now open the Azure portal and navigate to Azure Active Directory, to groups, and create a new group. So we are using this particular group for assigning the AutoPilot profile to this group, and then we only need to add the devices as a member to this group. So now we have created the group. And then we are checking if the MDM application is already configured. If not, please configure it. And also, if you have a dedicated SaaS environment, make sure you created an on-premise MDM application and change the application ID URI to your device server of Workspace ONE. This will expose the API and make it accessible from Workspace ONE. We are now going to the endpoint.microsoft.com, and we are now creating our AutoPilot profile. So we see here our just uploaded device. We can type in a device name if you already know, and we see that the profile status is not assigned right now. Also, we can assign a user if we already know which user will use the device. So in my case, it's dev admin. And now copy the serial number because we need this serial number for adding the device to our group. So go to groups, search your created hybrid join devices group, and add this serial number as a member. So search for it and add the device as a member. So now we need to create a profile. So we navigate to devices, enroll devices, deployment profiles. I already have here my normal Azure Active Directory AutoPilot profile. We're going now to create a new profile for Windows PC. So I'm typing here something like hybrid join, clicking next. So now we need to choose hybrid Azure Active Directory join. We are using user-driven mode since domain join, since self-deployment mode is not available for third-party mobile device management systems right now. And we need to skip the AD connectivity check, because when we're doing AutoPilot Hybrid Join, we typically have no access to the domain controller. And we need to skip the connectivity check, otherwise the profile will fail. So we're hiding all the other stuff, users count. I'm choosing here administrator because it's easier for me, but feel free to let it on default as standard user. So we don't need white glove since it's not supported with third-party MDMs. And yeah, we can choose here language, region, and then configure the keyboard automatically. Setting yes, we want to deploy this to our hybrid join devices groups, which we created earlier, saying next, create, and that's it. So after a while, the device we just added here will show that the profile status will be assigned. We are now going to pre-register the device in Workspace ONE. So navigate to Devices, Lifecycle, Enrollment Status. Then choose the user. So in my case, it's my dev administrator. Scroll down a little bit. You can say the expected friendly name. So you can easily see which device you already pre-registered and which not. And now you can say show advanced device information and paste the serial number to this device. And now we need to create a tag. So use the same tag as we previously created and used for our smart group. So now we have the device pre-registered in Workspace ONE. As optional step, if you want to use VMware Tunnel, we need to upload the Tunnel client. So you get it in the My Workspace ONE portal. So after we uploaded the file, I'm using here the 2.1 beta file because it's the latest available Tunnel client for Windows. So make the changes you need for the name. The uninstall string is quite easy to use in the VMware Tunnel exe name /uninstall. So in my case, I need to change my syntax a little bit. Now go to deployment options, and the same command is for the installation. So the VMware Tunnel beta.exe /install /passive and /no restart. So it's important to not use the restart or to not restart the device, because we are installing it during OB and the device gets restarted automatically. But we need to make sure that's not triggered by the installation of the VMware Tunnel. So then we assign it to our Windows clients. Of course, you can also use the ODJ smart group, say auto. If you want to hide the notification, you can say hide. Desired state will manage or will cause the reinstallation of the application if the application was uninstalled. Then we're going to the configurations, search for tunnel. This will open the tunnel configuration. I assume that you already installed and configured the UAG. So make sure you can access the UAG via the test connection. So tunnel to API is available, the IP address is up and running. And now we're going to add a new device traffic rule. So in my case, I'm using this again for ODJ, offline domain join. We want to use per app VPN, and for this we need to add managed application. So we need several applications for offline domain join via per app VPN. So one of them is NetLogon for the whole logon process. Of course, we need the Explorer XE for tunneling. Then we got the SV host file. And last but not least, we have the system command. So app identifier here is just system. So everything that's run in system will be automatically triggering the VPN connection. So add a rule and type in the name again. Full device, by the way, is supported with Tunnel 2.1. So actually right now it's a beta, but will be released soon. Add the 4 applications and then type *your domain. So in my case, it's star.mmworks.online. And all other apps should be bypassed, so that we are only using the VMware Tunnel for the log on and offline domain join process. That is on the configuration side, and now we need to create an VPN profile. So I go to Windows, Windows Desktop, device profile, type a name, so in my case it's just VPN, your smart group or organization group if you want. Make sure that you choose track profile status during the OB status enrollment page. This will force the profile to get installed directly after enrollment. So as connection type, choose Workspace ONE Tunnel, then the server gets selected automatically. Choose the right device traffic rule, say desktop client as yes. And now we need to make some custom configuration XML settings to make sure that the tunnel client is able to start pre-logon. So this is basically the one and only command you need to add. So the state start tunnel pre-log on needs to be true, and then the tunnel agent is able to start before. Then add the domains to be resolved via VPN. Use AutoPilot, then we need to make one specific change if you have it enabled. So we need to make sure that the status enrollment page or the status tracking page for OB needs to be disabled. Otherwise, the whole process will fail. So we see in the registry under local machine software AirWatch that there's an offline domain join enablement key. And in the console, we see that the device tag was added to the device because we pre-registered the device. And when we go now to commands in the troubleshooting tab, select filters, category and all. Then we see the offline domain join is queued. And on the connector itself, open the ACC, the AirWatch Cloud Connector log, which is located under C VMware AirWatch Logs Cloud Connector. And now you can see a specific message, and this is get offline domain join blobs, which means the ACC was triggered to generate a blob file on the domain controller. And in the Active Directory, we now see that the computer object was created.